I'm Audrey, 27, and last summer my sister Melody did something I never thought possible. After years of rivalry, she relegated me to sit behind a marble pillar at her wedding reception, completely hidden from view. We were inseparable as kids, but as I developed body image issues, she developed resentment. That night, humiliated and fighting back tears, I contemplated leaving when a hand reached toward me. A stranger's eyes met mine with unexpected kindness. Before I continue this story, let me know where you're watching from in the comments. If this resonates with you, hit that like and subscribe button to join our community of resilient soul. Melody is 5 years older than me, and growing up she was always the pretty one. Our parents, Richard and Catherine, were successful real estate agents who valued appearance above almost everything else. Our home in suburban Connecticut was immaculate. Our clothes were designer brands, and family photos were carefully staged to project perfection. My parents constantly reminded us that presentation was everything. From an early age, Melody fit that mold effortlessly. She inherited our mother's slender frame, high cheekbones, and naturally blonde hair. By 12, she was winning beauty pageants. I, on the other hand, took after my paternal grandmother. Shorter, with a naturally fuller figure, brown hair, and what my mother called sturdy features. While I struggled with my weight throughout childhood, Melody seemed to eat whatever she wanted and stay thin. My mother enrolled me in Weight Watchers at 9 years old. I remember sitting in those meetings, the only child among middle-aged women, feeling like a failure before I'd even started life. "You have such a pretty face," relatives would say the unspoken. "If only you weren't fat hanging in the air." My father would pinch my stomach and say, "Better watch that, Audrey." By 13, I was already cycling through diets, losing and regaining the same 20 pounds, while Melody flourished in high school as a cheerleader and prom queen. Our relationship was complicated. Sometimes Melody defended me fiercely. I remember her yelling at our mother once, "Leave Audrey alone, she's beautiful just as she is." But other times she'd join in the criticism. "You'd look so much better if you just tried harder," she'd say, while I watched her get ready for dates, feeling invisible beside her glow. When Melody left for college, I was 13, and suddenly alone with our parents' focused attention on my problem. High school was a blur of diets, exercise regimes, and constant disappointment. While Melody posted stunning photos from sorority parties, I hid from the camera. Everything changed when I went to college in Boston. Away from my family's scrutiny, I found friends who valued me for my mind and heart. I joined the school paper, discovered a passion for journalism, and slowly built confidence. I also lost weight, not through crash diets, but through intuitive eating and finding physical activities I enjoyed. By senior year, I had transformed both physically and mentally. When I came home for Christmas that year, something had shifted in Melody's eyes when she saw me. The warmth was replaced by something cooler, more assessing. Our mother couldn't stop gushing about how beautiful I finally was, while Melody grew quieter. That night, I overheard her on the phone with a friend. "She's suddenly acting like she's all that. It's ridiculous." After graduation, I landed a job at a digital media company in New York. I built a life with diverse friends and dating experiences that helped heal my self-image. Meanwhile, Melody had met Jason, a corporate lawyer from an old money family in Greenwich. He was handsome, wealthy, and their relationship fast-tracked to engagement after just a year. When Melody called to announce her engagement, I was genuinely happy for her. Despite our complicated history, she was my sister, and I wanted her to find happiness. "I'm planning a June wedding at the Bellamy Estate," she said, naming one of the most exclusive venues in Connecticut. "It's going to be the event of the season." "That sounds amazing, Mel," I replied, using my childhood nickname for her. There was a pause before she said, "I want you to be my maid of honor." My heart swelled. After years of feeling second best, this felt like recognition, like healing. Perhaps our adult relationship could be different. I immediately said yes, tears in my eyes, believing this was our chance to rebuild the closeness we'd lost. "Great," she said, sounding relieved. "The wedding's going to be featured in Connecticut Style magazine, so everything needs to be perfect." I ignored the emphasis on perfect and focused on the opportunity. My sister wanted me by her side on the most important day of her life. Nothing could go wrong. 6 months before the wedding, Melody organized the first bridesmaid meeting at an upscale restaurant in Greenwich. I took the train from New York, excited to meet the wedding party and dive into planning. I arrived early, wearing a new dress I'd splurged on, feeling confident and happy to be included in my sister's special day. The other bridesmaids arrived one by one. Kimberly, Melody's best friend since college, gave me a cool once-over before offering a tight smile. Rachel and Brittany, also from Melody's sorority, were polite but distant. Madison, Jason's sister, didn't even try to hide her disinterest in meeting me. Melody arrived last, making an entrance in designer sunglasses and a white pantsuit. "Ladies," she exclaimed, kissing everyone before taking her seat. "I'm so thrilled to have my dream team helping me create the perfect wedding." The waitress brought champagne, and as glasses clinked, Kimberly raised an eyebrow at me. "So you're the little sister? Melody's told us so much about you." Something in her tone made me uncomfortable. The conversation quickly turned to dresses. Melody had already selected the designer and color, a pale blush that made my skin crawl with memories of being forced into pink as a child. "I thought we'd choose styles individually," Melody said, "since we all have different figures." Her eyes lingered on me for a second too long. When the sample dresses arrived at the restaurant for us to view, I noticed something. While the other girls had multiple options, I had only one, a matronly cut with capped sleeves and a high neckline. "This is the only one that comes in extended sizes," Melody said quietly, though not quietly enough. "But I wear a size 8 now," I said, confused. "These other styles should fit me fine." Melody looked flustered. "Well, I just thought this would be most flattering on you." Kimberly jumped in. "We're thinking about the photos, honorable. We need everyone to look cohesive." The message was clear. Even though I'd lost weight, I was still the fat sister in their eyes. I swallowed my hurt and nodded, not wanting to create drama. 2 weeks later, we went for fittings. The seamstress measured me and confirmed I could wear any of the styles the other bridesmaids had chosen. When I mentioned this to Melody, she frowned. "The thing is, Audrey, you really need to tone up before the wedding." "Your arms," she gestured vaguely. "The dress I chose will hide problem areas." I felt like I'd been slapped. After years of work on my body image, my sister's casual comment reopened old wounds. "My body isn't a problem to be hidden, Mel. Don't be so sensitive," she snapped. "This is my wedding. I get to decide how everyone looks." The next day, I invited Melody to brunch, determined to have an honest conversation. At a quiet cafe, I tried to explain my feelings. "I know your wedding is important, but so is our relationship," I said. "When you make comments about my body, it hurts." Melody stirred her coffee, not meeting my eyes. "You're being too sensitive. Everything isn't about you and your insecurities. I'm under incredible pressure to make this wedding perfect." "Perfect for whom?" "The magazines," I asked. "For everyone," she exclaimed. "Mom and Dad have invited all their important clients. Jason's family is old money with high expectations. I can't have anything out of place." "Am I out of place?" I asked quietly. Melody sighed dramatically. "You're twisting my words. This is exactly why I can't talk to you anymore." After the disastrous brunch, I called our mother hoping for support. Instead, Catherine dismissed my concerns. "Weddings are stressful, Audrey. Melody has always been particular about aesthetics. Just wear what she wants and keep the peace. It's one day." Her voice softened slightly. "You have made such progress with your weight, dear. But there's always room for improvement, isn't there?" I hung up feeling defeated. That night I called my friend Heather, who had been my roommate in college and knew all about my family dynamics. "Your sister sounds threatened by you," Heather said bluntly. "You're not the easily controlled little sister anymore. You've become your own person and that scares her." "But I don't want to compete with her," I insisted. "Especially not at her wedding." "I know that, but she might not." "Stand your ground, Audrey. You've worked too hard on loving yourself to let them undermine you now." I ended the call with renewed determination. This was Melody's day, but I wouldn't let her or anyone else make me feel less than. For my sister's sake and for the sake of our future relationship, I would try to make this work, but not at the cost of my self-respect. 3 months before the wedding, Melody's bachelorette weekend arrived. As a bridesmaid, I had helped Kimberly plan an extravagant trip to Miami, booking a penthouse suite, organizing spa treatments, making dinner reservations at exclusive restaurants, and even arranging a private yacht excursion. Despite Kimberly continuously forgetting to include me in planning emails, I had contributed significantly, both financially and logistically. We arrived in Miami on a Friday afternoon, the humidity hitting us like a wall as we exited the airport. The penthouse suite overlooked the ocean with floor-to-ceiling windows and a private rooftop pool. It was everything Melody had dreamed of. "This is amazing," she squealed, hugging Kimberly. "You're the best maid of honor ever." I stood awkwardly to the side, having received no acknowledgement for my contributions. When I'd suggested splitting the planning between Kimberly and myself, Melody had insisted Kimberly had more experience with luxury events. That evening, dressed in the white outfit the bridesmaids were required to wear, Melody wore gold to stand out. We hit a trendy rooftop bar. A professional photographer Kimberly had hired followed us around. "Let's get some group shots," Melody called out after several rounds of cocktails. The bridesmaids gathered around her and I moved to join them. "Oh, Audrey, can you take a few with the photographer's camera?" Kimberly asked, holding out her hand for my phone. "Then we'll switch." I obliged, stepping back to take their photos. When I suggested it was my turn, Melody waved her hand dismissively. "We need to head to dinner or we'll lose our reservation. We'll do more photos tomorrow." This pattern continued throughout the weekend. I was asked to take photos rather than be in them, stationed at the back during activities, and at dinner mysteriously always seated at the end of the table far from Melody. When the yacht crew asked if we wanted group photos, Kimberly quickly arranged everyone, positioning me behind the others. On the last night, after too many margaritas, Melody cornered me on the penthouse balcony. Her words slurred slightly as she leaned close. "You know why I've kept you out of the photos, right?" she asked, her breath hot with tequila. "I've been wondering," I replied cautiously. She poked my shoulder. "You lost all that weight and got all pretty. Everyone keeps saying how amazing you look." Her expression darkened. Mom showed my engagement photos to Aunt Linda, and she spent 10 minutes talking about how gorgeous you looked in the background. "The background, Audrey." "Mel, I'm not trying to steal your spotlight," I said quietly. She laughed, a sharp sound without humor. "You already are. Everyone loves an ugly duckling story, don't they?" Poor fat Audrey, finally blossoming. She drained her glass. "This is my time. I've always been the pretty one. That's my role. What am I supposed to be if you're pretty too?" Before I could respond, she stumbled back inside, leaving me speechless and hurt. On the balcony, the Miami skyline blurring through my tears. When we returned home, I discovered via group text that I had been reassigned from maid of honor to regular bridesmaid. No explanation was provided, but a follow-up call from Melody made things clear. "It's nothing personal," she insisted unconvincingly. "Kimberly just has more time to handle the responsibilities." "You could have told me directly," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Instead of announcing it to everyone in a group text." "This is what I mean," she snapped. "You're not responsible enough. Everything becomes a drama with you." "What have I done that's irresponsible?" I challenged. "I helped plan the bachelorette party. I've attended every meeting. I've paid for everything on time. It's hard to explain. You don't understand the pressure I'm under." Later that week, Madison, Jason's sister, let it slip during a bridesmaid's fitting that Kimberly had been campaigning for my demotion for weeks. "She kept telling Melody you were trying to make the wedding about yourself," Madison said, examining her manicure. "Something about you losing weight to upstage Melody and flirting with Jason's friends at the engagement party." The accusations were absurd. I'd barely spoken to Jason's friends and had maintained my weight loss for years before Melody's engagement. But the revelation explained the increasing coldness from the wedding party. Despite the hurt, I threw myself into wedding preparations with renewed determination. I volunteered for extra tasks, stayed late addressing invitations, and even helped Melody's future mother-in-law organize the rehearsal dinner. Part of me hoped that by proving my dedication, Melody would see how ridiculous Kimberly's accusations were. I also doubled down on diet and exercise, not because I wanted to look better than my sister, but because the stress of the situation had triggered old insecurities. It was an unhealthy coping mechanism, I knew, but the familiar rhythm of restriction gave me a sense of control when everything else felt chaotic. By 2 weeks before the wedding, I had lost another 10 pounds. My bridesmaid dress, already altered, once hung loose on my frame. When I arrived for the final fitting, Melody's eyes widened. "You look good," she admitted reluctantly. There was a flicker of the old Melody, my sister, who once defended me against our mother's criticism. For a moment, I thought we might turn a corner. "Thanks, Mel. I'm so excited for your big day," I said sincerely. She smiled, the first genuine smile I'd seen from her in months. "Me too. It's going to be perfect." She squeezed my hand. "I'm glad you're going to be there with me." That small gesture rekindled hope that despite everything, my sister still wanted me by her side. Wedding week arrived with military precision. Melody had created a detailed schedule for each day, color-coded and laminated, for all members of the bridal party. The rehearsal dinner was scheduled for Friday evening at the Bellamy estate, where the wedding would take place the following day. I arrived early to help with place cards, wearing a new navy blue dress I'd bought specially for the occasion. The venue was stunning, a historic mansion with sprawling gardens and a grand ballroom adorned with crystal chandeliers. Florists and decorators bustled about transforming the already beautiful space into something from a fairy tale. As guests began to arrive, I noticed something odd. The seating chart placed me at table 11, while my parents and extended family were seated at tables 1 and 2 near Melody and Jason. When I approached my mother about it, she seemed uncomfortable. Melody arranged the seating, dear. I'm sure she had her reasons. Table 11, it turned out, was in a far corner of the room populated by distant acquaintances and Jason's work colleagues whom I'd never met. Throughout dinner, I watched my family laughing and celebrating just a few yards away, yet completely separate from me. After the meal, I overheard a conversation that stopped me cold. Melody was speaking with Jason's parents near the bar, unaware that I was on the other side of a decorative screen. Your sister seems nice, Jason's mother said, though we haven't had much chance to speak with her. There was a pause before Melody replied, to be honest, I'm a little embarrassed by Audrey. She's always been the difficult one in the family. Emotional problems, you know. We thought it would be easier to seat her away from the main family tables. How thoughtful of you to include her despite that, Jason's father commented. Well, she is my sister, Melody said with a laugh that made my stomach turn. Some things you can't avoid. I retreated to the bathroom, locking myself in a stall until I could breathe normally again. By the time I emerged, the rehearsal was starting, and I had no choice but to participate, smiling mechanically as we practiced our procession. The morning of the wedding dawned bright and clear. I arrived at the bridal suite at 8 a.m. as instructed, carrying my carefully packed bridesmaid dress and accessories. You're late, Kimberly snapped when I entered, though a quick glance at my watch confirmed I was actually 5 minutes early. The next several hours were a blur of hairstyling, makeup application, and champagne, though Kimberly made sure my glass was never refilled. Melody sat in the center of the activity, like a queen holding court, alternating between excited chatter and barking orders at the wedding planner. At 1 p.m. it was finally time to get dressed. When I unzipped the garment bag containing my bridesmaid dress, I froze. The dress inside was not the one I had tried on at my final fitting. Though the same color and general style, this version had added ruffles around the waist and a higher neckline that made me look matronly and at least 20 pounds heavier. There must be a mistake, I said, holding up the dress. This isn't my dress. Melody glanced over, a strange expression crossing her face. The seamstress made some last-minute adjustments. I approved them. But why? I asked, disbelief giving way to understanding as I looked at the altered dress. You had my dress changed. Melody pulled me into an adjoining room, closing the door behind us. For a moment she looked almost guilty, then her expression hardened. You lost more weight deliberately, she accused. You were going to show up looking too thin, too perfect. The photographer said you were pulling focus in the test shots. That's not true, I protested, tears threatening to spill. I've been stressed. You know I lose weight when I'm stressed. Everyone was talking about how amazing you looked at the rehearsal dinner, she continued, as if I hadn't spoken. My mother-in-law asked if you were a model, for God's sake. So you altered my dress to make me look worse. The reality of what my own sister had done was almost impossible to process. Melody squared her shoulders. I fixed it to make you look appropriate. This is my wedding, Audrey. One day in my life where I need to be the center of attention. I never wanted to compete with you, I said, my voice breaking. Well, you are competing, she hissed. You always have been, ever since you lost all that weight and started pretending you're so special. I stared at my sister, this person I'd loved my entire life, who had defended me and hurt me in equal measure over the years, and saw a stranger. Wear the dress or don't come to the wedding, she said finally. It's your choice. In the end, I wore the dress. Not for Melody, but for myself. To prove I was stronger than her cruelty, to avoid giving her the satisfaction of driving me away, and because some small part of me still hoped for reconciliation. The ceremony itself was beautiful. Standing behind Melody as she exchanged vows with Jason, I focused on the meaning of marriage, the commitment they were making to each other, and prayed that their union would be kinder than our sisterhood had become. After the ceremony, as guests moved to the reception, I made a devastating discovery. My name had been completely omitted from the wedding program. Every bridesmaid was listed by name and relationship. Kimberly Davis, best friend Madison Campbell, sister of the groom, but where my name should have been, there was nothing. I had been erased from the narrative of my sister's wedding. Still reeling from this discovery, I entered the reception hall to find my seat for dinner. Following the place card with my name, I wound through tables of laughing guests until I reached my assigned spot, a small table positioned directly behind one of the massive marble pillars that lined the ballroom. The pillar completely obscured my view of the head table, the dance floor, and most of the room. From this position, I would be unable to see any of the evening's events. The first dance, the toasts, the cake cutting, and more importantly, no one would be able to see me. I was quite literally positioned to disappear. As I stood there, place card in hand, the full weight of my sister's message became clear. I wasn't just being hidden, I was being erased. I sat alone at my table behind the pillar, invisible to everyone except the occasional server who refilled my water glass with pitying glances. From my position, I could hear the celebration but couldn't participate in it. The sounds of clinking glasses, laughter, and music swirled around me, emphasizing my isolation. When dinner was served, I picked up my salmon without tasting it, fighting back tears that threatened to ruin the makeup I'd carefully applied that morning. A makeup artist had made me look beautiful for a party where no one would see me. The DJ announced the father-daughter dance, and I shifted my chair slightly to catch a glimpse of Melody and our father swaying to butterfly kisses. I remembered how, as children, Melody would insist I practice dancing with her, standing on her feet as she guided me around our living room. "When we get married, we'll have the best father-daughter dances ever," she'd declared. Somewhere along the way we had become and I had become an inconvenience to be hidden. As the evening progressed, I made several attempts to join conversations circulating during the brief periods when guests left their tables. Each time I was met with the same response, polite smiles followed by subtle maneuvering that sent me back to my pillar. Kimberly was particularly skilled at this, appearing beside me whenever I approached a group that included family or wedding party members. "Audrey, I think someone was looking for you over there," she would say, directing me toward another isolated area of the venue. During the toasts, I stood at the back of the room, craning my neck to see. My mother caught my eye once, her expression unreadable before she quickly looked away. My father, already on his fourth scotch, didn't seem to notice my absence from the family tables at all. After the toasts concluded, I watched Melody and Jason cut their cake, feeding each other with exaggerated care to avoid smudging makeup or staining the pristine white tuxedo. Applause erupted and Melody's laugh rang out, the same laugh I'd grown up hearing through bedroom walls, across dinner tables, in the backseat of family road trips. Something broke inside me then. The last thread of hope that this was all a misunderstanding, that my sister hadn't deliberately set out to hurt me on what should have been one of the happiest days of her life. I retreated to the bathroom, locking myself in a stall as the elegant wallpaper and marble countertops blurred through my tears. Memories flooded back, Melody braiding my hair before school, Melody sneaking ice cream to my room after a particularly brutal comment from our mother about my weight, Melody calling me from college every Sunday, asking about my classes, my friends, my life. Where had that sister gone? Had she ever really existed, or had I imagined her kindness, crafted a protective fiction to survive our appearance-obsessed household? My chest tightened, breath coming in shallow gasps as panic rose. I fumbled in my purse for my phone, nearly calling Heather before remembering she was on vacation in Europe. There was no one to call, no one who would understand or help. I was completely alone. In the mirror above the sink, my reflection stared back at me, mascara smudged beneath swollen eyes. The altered bridesmaid dress bunched unflatteringly around my waist, despite my recent weight loss. I looked exactly how Melody wanted me to look, unattractive, forgettable, diminished. For one dark moment I thought about hurting myself, not seriously but enough to punish Melody, to create the scene she so feared. The thought frightened me with its intensity, its destructive power. This wasn't me. I wasn't a person who used self-harm as weapon. I splashed cold water on my face, reapplied my makeup with shaking hands, and made a decision: I would leave. Not with a dramatic exit, but quietly dignified. I would call a rideshare, return to my hotel, and fly back to New York first thing in the morning. I would begin the process of accepting that the sister I loved existed only in my memories now. Decision made, I gathered my things and headed for the exit. As I stepped outside, the cool evening air was a relief after the stuffy reception hall. Then I noticed the weather had changed. Dark clouds had gathered during the reception, and as I pulled out my phone to call a car, fat raindrops began to fall. Within seconds, the drizzle became a downpour. I dashed back under the venue's awning, but not before my hair and dress were soaked. Lightning flashed, followed by a boom of thunder that seemed to shake the ground. The storm had knocked out power to the rideshare app, and the venue was in a remote area with notoriously bad cell service. After 15 futile minutes trying to call a car, I admitted defeat. The storm wasn't letting up and I was stranded. I would have to return to the reception and wait it out, looking even more bedraggled than before. I slipped back into the ballroom hoping to find my hidden table still empty. Instead, I discovered the table had been repurposed entirely, now covered with gift bags and wedding favors, my place setting completely removed. It was as if I had never been there at all. Soaking wet, makeup ruined, with nowhere to sit, I retreated to a corner near the bar, trying to make myself invisible for real this time. The universe, it seemed, was determined to complete my humiliation. "You look like you could use this," said a deep voice beside me. I turned to find a tall man in a groomsman's tuxedo holding out a glass of champagne and a plate with a slice of wedding cake. His dark hair was slightly disheveled, and there was a kind warmth in his brown eyes that caught me off guard. "Thank you," I said, accepting both without meeting his gaze. "But I'm fine." "You're soaking wet, standing alone in a corner, and haven't touched any food all night," he observed. "That doesn't meet my definition of fine." Despite myself, I laughed. "Are you monitoring my food intake?" "Just concerned," he replied. "I'm Ryan, by the way. Jason's cousin from California." "Audrey," I said. "Melody's sister." "I know," he said simply. I raised an eyebrow. "You know, it's my job to know everyone in the wedding party," he explained. "Plus, I've heard a lot about you." My stomach clenched. "All bad, I'm sure." "Actually, Jason speaks highly of you. Says you're the only one in the family with any real substance." Ryan leaned against the wall beside me, creating a small bubble of privacy in the crowded room. "He was surprised when he saw where they seated you." I took a sip of champagne, unsure how to respond. The fact that Jason had noticed, and apparently commented on, my isolation was both vindicating and mortifying. "I don't want to cause trouble," I said finally. "No, you just want to be treated with basic dignity," Ryan replied. "Radical concept, I know." His candor was refreshing after months of tiptoeing around Melody's feelings. "How do you know I'm not the difficult one? Maybe I deserve to be stashed behind a pillar." "Nobody deserves that," he said firmly. "Besides, I recognize the signs." "Signs of what?" "Family disappointment syndrome," he said with a wry smile. "I'm the black sheep in mine. Refused to join the family law firm to become a marine biologist instead. My parents still introduce me as their confused son." "Marine biology sounds fascinating," I said. "It is? What do you do?" "Digital content editor for a media company in New York," I replied. "Nothing as interesting as studying ocean life." "I disagree," Ryan said. "You're shaping the narratives people consume every day. That's incredibly powerful." As we talked, I gradually relaxed, forgetting my wet dress and the stares from nearby guests. Ryan was easy to talk to, asking thoughtful questions and listening to my answers with genuine interest. When he suggested we get some air on the venue's covered terrace, I agreed without hesitation. Outside, the rain continued to fall, creating a silver curtain around the terrace. The sound was soothing, cocooning us in unexpected privacy. "Want to know a secret?" Ryan asked after a comfortable silence. "I almost didn't come to this wedding." "Why not?" "Family events are challenging for me. The constant reminders that I'm not who they wanted me to be." He leaned on the terrace railing, looking out at the rain. "Jason's the only one who gets it. He fought hard to get what he wanted instead of what was expected, which was a career in environmental law instead of corporate, marrying Melody instead of the society girl his parents picked out." Ryan turned to face me. He said, "You were similar, forging your own path despite pressure." I considered this. I never thought of myself as brave, just trying to survive. "Sometimes that's the bravest thing of all." He hesitated before continuing. "I've been watching how they've treated you all weekend." My cheeks burned. "You noticed that?" "It was hard to miss," he admitted gently. "At the rehearsal dinner, during photos this morning. And now this." He gestured vaguely toward the ballroom. "It's not right, Audrey. It's complicated," I said weakly, though his validation made my throat tight with emotion. "Family always is," he agreed. "But there's a difference between complicated and cruel." Just then, the string quartet began playing a waltz. Through the terrace doors we could see couples moving onto the dance floor. Ryan straightened and offered his hand. "Dance with me." I stared at his outstretched palm. "In there, everyone will stare. I'm a mess." "Let them stare," he said simply. "Besides, you're beautiful, even soaking wet." There was something in his expression, earnestness mixed with challenge, that made me place my hand in his. He led me back inside and onto the dance floor, where sure enough several heads turned in our direction. As Ryan guided me confidently through the steps of the waltz, I caught Melody watching from the head table, her expression a mixture of surprise and annoyance. For once, I didn't look away first. After the dance ended, Ryan suggested we find a quieter spot to continue our conversation. We found a small alcove near the venue's library, partially removed from the reception but still within sight of other guests. "Tell me something," I said once we were seated. "Why are you being so kind to me? You don't even know me." Ryan considered the question. "I know what it's like to be the family outlier, to work hard to become your own person only to be treated like it's some kind of betrayal." "That's exactly it," I said, surprised by his insight. "It's like by changing I've somehow betrayed Melody, but I didn't lose weight or build my career to hurt her. I did it for me." "And that's threatening," Ryan nodded. "When people put you in a box, the fat sister, the confused son, and you climb out of it, it forces them to question the boxes they've put themselves in." The truth of his words resonated deeply. For hours we talked about family dynamics, self-worth, and the courage it takes to define yourself outside of others' expectations. Ryan shared stories of disastrous family holidays and professional triumphs his parents couldn't understand. I told him about my journey from self-loathing to fragile confidence and how Melody's wedding had threatened to undo years of progress. "What if we get out of here for a bit?" Ryan suggested eventually. "Just for a walk. The rain stopped." The idea was tempting. "Won't we be missed?" He laughed. "I've fulfilled my groomsman duties. The only one who might notice is Jason, and he'd understand." Outside, the storm had left the air clean and cool. We walked the perimeter of the estate's gardens, our conversation flowing as naturally as if we'd known each other for years instead of hours. The strangest part, I confessed as we circled back toward the venue, is that despite everything I still love Melody. I still want her to be happy. "That's not strange," Ryan replied. "It's actually pretty remarkable. After how she's treated you, most people would be plotting revenge, not hoping for her happiness." "Is that a compliment, or are you calling me a doormat?" I asked with a small smile. "Definitely a compliment," he said, stopping to face me. "It takes strength to love people who hurt you. The question is whether you can love yourself enough to set boundaries with them." As we re-entered the reception, I felt lighter than I had in months. Something had shifted during our walk. Not just about Melody or the wedding, but about my own worth and the kind of treatment I deserved. That newfound clarity was immediately tested when we encountered Melody near the entrance, her face flushed with anger. "Where have you been?" she hissed, grabbing my arm. "People have been asking questions. You're making a scene disappearing with one of the groomsmen." Ryan stepped forward. "We just went for a walk, Melody. No scene-making involved." Melody ignored him, her grip tightening on my arm. "Mom's been covering for you, saying you weren't feeling well. Get back inside before you embarrass us further." As she dragged me toward the reception, I caught Ryan's eye. His expression asked a clear question. "What will you do now?" Melody pulled me into a small antechamber off the main reception hall, her white knuckles stark against her bouquet. Behind us, I could hear the DJ announcing the bouquet toss would begin momentarily. "What do you think you're doing?" she demanded, voice low but vibrating with anger. "Sneaking off with Ryan, making yourself the center of attention." "Center of attention?" I repeated incredulously. "I've been hidden behind a pillar all night, and now you're missing the bouquet toss to go on romantic walks with Jason's cousin." Her eyes narrowed. "You couldn't stand it, could you, one day where you weren't the focus?" The absurdity of her accusation, that I deliberately isolated and humiliated was somehow stealing her spotlight, crystallized something in me. Years of diminishment, of contorting myself to fit others' expectations, of accepting scraps of conditional love. It all rose to the surface. "You know what, Melody? Let's do this. Let's have this conversation right now." She blinked clearly, expecting apologies and compliance, not confrontation. "There's nothing to discuss. Just get back in there and—" "No," I interrupted, surprising both of us. "I've spent months watching you push me aside, demote me, alter my dress, and finally hide me at your wedding. I've tried to understand. I've made excuses for you. I'm done." Melody's face flushed. "You're being dramatic." "Am I?" "You've been systematically trying to make me invisible since you got engaged." "Why?" "Because I lost weight. Because I'm finally happy with myself. How insecure are you that your sister's happiness threatens your wedding day?" "You have no idea the pressure I'm under," she shouted, abandoning all pretense of keeping our argument private. "Everything has to be perfect. The magazines, Jason's family, Mom and Dad's expectations. This isn't about any of them," I cut in. "This is about you not being able to handle that I'm no longer the before picture that makes you look better." The door opened and our mother slipped in, her face taut with alarm. girls, what on earth is happening? Everyone can hear you." "Audrey's trying to ruin my wedding," Melody said immediately. I laughed, a sound so unexpected it silenced both of them. "Ruin your wedding, by what? Existing, by refusing to be stuffed behind a pillar and forgotten." My mother glanced between us, confusion evident. "What pillar, Audrey? What are you talking about?" "Show her, Melody," I challenged. "Show Mom where you seated me. Show her the dress you had altered to make me look worse. Show her the program where my name doesn't exist." Melody's expression flickered between defiance and guilt. "It's my wedding. I get to decide." "Yes, you get to decide," I interrupted. "And you decided to be cruel to the person who has loved you her entire life. The person who defended you when you were difficult, who celebrated every accomplishment with you, who would have done anything to support your happiness." My voice broke and I realized I was crying, but for once I didn't care who saw or what they thought. "You decided that your insecurities were more important than our relationship." The door opened again, and this time Jason entered, followed closely by our father and Ryan. The small room was now crowded, the air heavy with tension. "What's going on?" Jason asked, looking between his new wife and me with concern. "Ask your wife," I said quietly. "Ask her why her sister isn't in a single wedding photo. Ask her why my name was removed from the program. Ask her why I've been seated behind a pillar all night, while strangers got better seats." Jason's expression shifted from confusion to disbelief as he turned to Melody. "Is that true?" "It's complicated," Melody said weakly. "No, it's actually very simple. I continued a lifetime of suppressed feelings, finally finding voice. Since we were children, I've been told I'm not enough, not thin enough, not pretty enough, not worthy of the same love and respect as my perfect sister. I spent years believing it. I turned to our parents. You taught us that appearance was everything, that beauty determined worth. And when I finally rejected that message and found value in myself, you all acted like I'd betrayed you somehow." My father, slightly drunk and clearly uncomfortable, waved a dismissive hand. "This is hardly the time or place for family therapy, Audrey. When is the time, Dad? Because for 27 years I've been waiting for all of you to see me, really see me, and not just what I look like or how I reflect on you." My mother stepped forward, her expression softening slightly. "Audrey, darling, you're making a scene. Let's discuss this another time." "There won't be another time," I said, with sudden clarity. "After today, I'm done pretending that this is a healthy family dynamic. I'm done accepting scraps of conditional love." Melody's composure finally broke, tears spilling down her carefully made-up face. "You think this is easy for me? All my life people have valued me only for how I look. It's the one thing I had that you didn't. Then you got thin and pretty, and suddenly everyone was fawning over you. The amazing transformation, how smart and accomplished you are. What am I supposed to be proud of? Being decorative?" The raw honesty of her admission stunned me into momentary silence. Behind her, Jason placed a supportive hand on her shoulder, though his expression remained troubled. "Melody," I said, "finally, I never wanted to take anything from you. I just wanted to find my own worth. And I needed my sister to be happy for me the way I've always been happy for you." "I don't know how," she whispered suddenly, looking very young and lost. Around us, the small crowd of family members shifted uncomfortably. My father checked his watch, clearly eager to return to the reception. My mother dabbed at her eyes, careful not to smudge her makeup. Only Ryan remained perfectly still, his presence a silent support I hadn't known I needed. "I think," I said slowly, "that we all have a lot to work through. But tonight is your wedding, and you should enjoy it with the people who make you feel good about yourself. That clearly isn't me right now." I straightened my shoulders, decision made. "I'm going to leave. Not because you've pushed me away, but because I'm choosing to walk away from a situation that isn't healthy for any of us." "Audrey," my mother began, but I held up a hand. "I'm not doing this for dramatic effect. I'm doing it because I finally respect myself enough to set boundaries." I turned to Melody. "I love you. I always will. But I won't let you treat me like I'm nothing anymore." Melody stared at me, mascara streaking her cheeks. For a moment, I thought she might apologize, might ask me to stay. Instead, she nodded once, a gesture that acknowledged the truth of my words, without accepting responsibility for them. It was enough for now. I turned to leave, catching Ryan's eye. As I moved toward the door, "I'll drive you," he said quietly, a statement rather than a question. Outside, the night air was cool on my tear-stained face. As Ryan guided me toward his car, I felt lighter than I had in years. Not with happiness, but with the peculiar weightlessness that comes from finally speaking your truth, whatever the consequences. 6 months after Melody's wedding, I sat in my therapist Dr. Winter's office watching autumn leaves swirl outside the window. Our weekly sessions had become a cornerstone of my healing process, a safe space to untangle the complex emotions surrounding that night and the family dynamics it had exposed. "You seem more settled today," Dr. Winters observed, her kind eyes studying my face. "I feel it," I admitted. "For the first time, I'm not waking up thinking about Melody or replaying the wedding in my mind." The aftermath had been painful but necessary. I'd returned to New York immediately after the wedding, declining my parents' confused phone calls and Melody's single text that read, "Only I'm sorry you felt you had to leave." Instead of responding from a place of hurt, I'd taken Dr. Winter's advice and established clear boundaries. I sent my family a lengthy email explaining that I needed space to process years of emotional damage. I outlined specific behaviors that were no longer acceptable, comments about my appearance, comparisons to Melody, dismissal of my feelings, and made it clear that any future relationship would depend on mutual respect. My parents had responded predictably. My mother called it dramatic and my father suggested I get over it. But over time, as my absence from family calls and events continued, something shifted. My mother began sending tentative texts that didn't mention my weight or appearance. My father, in his awkward way, mailed me a book about women entrepreneurs with a note that read simply, "Made me think of you." They were baby steps, but steps nonetheless. My career had flourished in the months following the wedding. I'd channeled my newfound sense of self-worth into pitching a new content vertical focused on authentic representations of women. The project had been approved, and I'd been promoted to lead it. "Have you heard from Melody recently?" Dr. Winters asked, bringing me back to the present. "Actually, yes," I said, still surprised by this development. "She texted yesterday asking if I'd meet her for lunch when she's in the city next week." "And how do you feel about that?" I considered the question carefully, cautious, but ready, I think. "Ryan says I should hear her out." Ryan had been an unexpected blessing from the wedding disaster. After driving me back to my hotel that night, he'd given me his number with no pressure to use it. 3 weeks later, I'd called him during a particularly difficult therapy session, and he'd listened without judgment as I processed my feelings. We began talking regularly, first as friends, and then as something more. Despite the physical distance, him in California, me in New York, we'd built a relationship founded on honest communication and mutual respect. He'd flown to New York monthly, and I'd visited his research facility in San Diego. Each visit deepened our connection, and we were now navigating the logistics of a more permanent arrangement. "Ryan's been good for you," Dr. Winters observed with a smile. "He has," I agreed. "But the most important relationship I've healed is with myself." This wasn't just therapy speak. The woman who had once accepted being hidden behind a pillar no longer existed. I'd learned to identify unhealthy patterns, to set boundaries without guilt, to value myself enough to walk away from people and situations that diminished me. The following week, I sat at a quiet table in a Manhattan restaurant watching the door for Melody's arrival. When she entered, I was struck by how different she looked, not physically but in her bearing. The imperious confidence had been replaced by something more tentative. "Audrey," she said, sliding into the seat across from me. "Thank you for meeting me." "Of course," I replied, studying her face. "How are you, Melody?" She fiddled with her water glass before answering. "Honestly, not great. Jason and I, we're in counseling." This surprised me. Their relationship had seemed solid, if somewhat performative. "I'm sorry to hear that." "Don't be. It's good, actually." She took a deep breath. "After the wedding, Jason called me out on how I treated you. He said he couldn't be married to someone who would do that to their own sister." I remained silent, allowing her to continue. "At first I was defensive, but then I started seeing patterns. How I treat people when I feel threatened, how I measure my worth by how I look and who admires me." She looked up, meeting my eyes directly. "The same things I accused you of." "Classic projection," I said softly. She nodded. "Our therapist says I've been defining myself by external validation my whole life, just like Mom taught us to." The honesty in her voice was new, and it stirred a tentative hope in me. "That's not an easy realization." "No," she agreed. "It's not, but it's necessary." She reached across the table, stopping just short of touching my hand. "Audrey, what I did to you at the wedding, and for months before, was unforgivable." "I don't know if it's about forgiveness," I said carefully. "It's about understanding why it happened, and making sure it never happens again." "I understand why," Melody said, a catch in her voice. "I was jealous. Not just of how you look, but of who you are. You've always had this authenticity that I lack. People are drawn to you because you're genuinely interested in them, not in how they can validate you. Her assessment caught me off guard. I'd always seen Melody as the charismatic one, the social butterfly who collected friends and admirers effortlessly. I never saw myself that way, I admitted, because Mom and Dad trained us to value the wrong things. Melody twisted her wedding ring, a nervous habit I remembered from childhood. I'm trying to unlearn that. It's hard. It is, I agreed. I'm still working on it every day. Our conversation continued through lunch, neither of us fully relaxing, but both making a genuine effort. Melody showed me photos from her honeymoon, mentioned struggles in her new marriage, and asked thoughtful questions about my work and life in New York. I told her about my promotion, and briefly about Ryan, Jason's cousin, she asked, eyebrows raised. I didn't know you were still in touch. We're more than in touch, I said, watching her reaction carefully. To her credit, Melody smiled. A real smile that reached her eyes. He seemed like a good guy, different from the rest of Jason's family. He is, I confirmed, not elaborating further. There would be time for those details if our relationship continued to heal. As we prepared to leave, Melody hesitated. Will you be home for Christmas? The question held more weight than its simple words suggested. It was an invitation back into the family, but also a test of the boundaries I'd established. I'm not sure yet, I answered honestly. Ryan and I are discussing options, but if I do come, things need to be different. Melody nodded. I understand. For what it's worth, I'm working on it. With Mom and Dad too, though they're more resistant. We parted with a brief, slightly awkward hug. Not the full reconciliation of a movie ending, but a tentative step in the right direction. 2 months later, I did go home for Christmas, bringing Ryan with me. The visit wasn't perfect. My mother still made one comment about my haircut looking a bit severe for my face shape, and my father still discussed my career as if it were a charming hobby rather than a professional achievement. But there were moments of genuine connection too. Melody made a point of asking me to help in the kitchen, creating space for private conversation away from our parents. My mother, after a glass of wine, admitted she was proud of my promotion. My father asked Ryan thoughtful questions about marine conservation. Most significantly, when we gathered for Christmas dinner, I was seated at the main table between Ryan and my father, directly across from Melody. No pillars, no hidden corners, no erasure. It was a small gesture, but a meaningful one. As Ryan and I drove back to our hotel that night, I reflected on the journey of the past year, from humiliation and heartbreak to healing and cautious hope. You're quiet, Ryan observed, reaching for my hand across the console. Just thinking about how sometimes being forced into the shadows ends up leading you to your light, I said, squeezing his fingers. Poetic, he teased gently. But true, I insisted. If Melody hadn't seated me behind that pillar, you might never have noticed me. I might never have found the courage to stand up for myself. Sometimes our worst moments lead us to our best lives. Ryan lifted our intertwined hands to his lips. For what it's worth, I would have noticed you anywhere, pillar or no pillar. I smiled, feeling the truth of his words settle in my heart. The journey wasn't over. With my family, with my self-image, with learning to set healthy boundaries. But for the first time, I was walking that path from a place of strength rather than shame, surrounded by people who valued me for exactly who I was. Have you ever had to stand up for yourself with family members who couldn't see your worth? I know how painful that journey can be, but also how liberating. Share your experiences in the comments below. Your story might give someone else the courage they need today. And if this resonated with you, please like and subscribe to join our community of people learning to value themselves. Remember, sometimes the people who hurt us the most are fighting their own battles with insecurity. It doesn't excuse their behavior, but understanding can help us heal. Thank you for listening to my story, and remember, you deserve to be seen, to be valued, and to take up space. No pillars, no shadows, no apologies.